Hi, everybody. I'm Kaye. I'm a reporter for Advertising Age, based in the States. And I'm actually just going to have my panelists introduce themselves since they'll do a much better job of it than I would. We're going to talk about the data-driven marketer for the next half an hour or so. I'll be throwing out some questions to these guys, and then we'll maybe leave some time for the audience. If you guys have a question or two, keep it in mind. So Caroline, I'll have you intro yourself, and Blake.
Thank you very much. So good morning, everybody. My name is Caroline Taylor. It says on the screen that I'm IBM's European CMO, which was true until last Thursday. But I just took a new job at IBM, which I'm now running all of the geographic teams, so the Europe team that I used to run and the other 6 regional teams around the world for IBM. But basically the same thing, just more travel. I've been in marketing for my entire life, and I've been with IBM for 18 years. So spent a lot of time in the tech industry. IBM, obviously a massive brand, regularly in the kind of top 3, 4, 5 of brands, however you like to measure brand value. And an interesting fact you may not know, but actually the largest digital agency on the planet, according to Ad Age, and they should know.
I know the people who do that, who come up with that list, and it's they're meticulous, and they really look at the numbers, and it's based on the numbers.
Well, congratulations on all the future frequent flyer miles you'll be earning, Caroline. I'm Blake Cahill. I head up digital marketing at Royal Philips, a company that's based in the Netherlands and probably well known to all of you for our electronics businesses and our lighting businesses. And we've been around for 125 years. And for the past 3 years, I've been driving a digital marketing transformation to embed capability and similar ways of working across all of our 12 business groups, 17 markets, 100 countries. As you can imagine, touching 5,000 marketeers is a simple task. So today, talking a little bit about our digital marketing transformation and analytics transformation. And prior to being at Philips, I ran an agency in digital and also some tech startups, so some battle scars there as well.
Yeah, so all right, so we thought we'd start off the conversation talking about both of your companies going through massive shifts right now. I mean, the world of businesses and you guys just being such large organizations, in order to survive, you have to make a lot of changes. And so IBM had its earnings yesterday. You beat expectations, but you're still up against some challenges. Can you talk a little bit about just, as in your role when the earnings are out and you're thinking about the business overall, what are you thinking about?
So we at IBM, we're in the middle of a massive transformation. We do this on a regular basis in our now 105 years of history, reinvent ourselves, and in doing so, typically the industry. So we're on an incredibly rapid transformation path. And I think when you look at our earnings, you see extraordinary progress, nearly $11 billion of cloud revenue in just the past 12 months, in just the past 4 quarters, for example. So it's not happening as fast as Wall Street would like it to. There's a surprise. But it's an amazingly rapid transformation and a very profitable transformation. So I think I actually feel pretty good about it. The world changed. The world has changed around us, and so you have to transform yourselves as an organization. IBM has divested of quite a number of its old heartland businesses, which have become commoditized. If it's not profitable, why would you keep doing it? And as I say, is in this rapid transformation over the past 4 or 5 years to shift into the new areas. And most of that is driven in some way, shape or form by data, by the volumes of data, by the need of business to be able to get value out of that data. We are, we've always been involved in professional services, but now, that's become an increasingly large piece of our work. And I think that you could really net it out to say that today our clients expect to pay us for an outcome delivered to them, for value delivered to them. they are, it's less the point of how are you going to deliver that. Is that through consultants? Is it through software? Is it through hardware? That sort of becomes irrelevant. It's massively important for us to figure that out, but that isn't what our clients want. They want an outcome. They want us to deliver an outcome. And so from my perspective, as a marketer, it's vital that I engage with my clients wherever they might be, and increasingly where they might be is somewhere in the digital world, rather than, face-to-face as we all are here today. And it's hugely important that they have confidence that we can deliver that outcome, and that really becomes my day job.
Yeah, I think to build, Caroline, on what you said, I think if we talk about the data-driven marketeer, I think both of our businesses are going under pretty significant transformations, and I think any company that was very product-centric, that plans to be around for the next 120 years or whatever, needs to be a hardware, a software, a services business. All of those things throw off a lot of data and change the way marketeers have to interact. I just look at all the insights we get from all of our connected products and all of our apps. Really, that changes everything we're doing. We were essentially a business that built big machines and lots of, I'll call it analog products, but increasingly, everything we're doing is connected. And that spins off tons of data. Most of the data that it's spinning off for a number of our products is in health to improve people's lives. And I think if you think both of our businesses were in the health spaces, it's really one of the last industries to radically go through transformation. And if we think about the future, all of this health data, inside of that data, there'll be outcomes. And again, back to outcomes and value, that changes basically everything we're doing as a business, building a whole hardware, software stack, and then all these connected products. It isn't about above the line, launching above the line and moving boxes anymore. It's really about monitoring on a daily basis. So to bring it really into how we market and sell, that's a big transformation for how marketeers and salespeople behave on a daily basis.
And so, and we'll get into some of the metrics that you look at in a minute, but I'd love to hear a little bit about how do you stay abreast of what's going on, especially, a day like today, you're at a conference. It's tough to sort of be in the zone that you'd be in the office. You're here, how do you check in to see what's going on, where the data that you would normally look at every day before you start your day?
Yeah, we built, it's a little bit passé at this point, but a big command center where we've actually visualized and aggregated a lot of our data. It's about 25 different screens where we look at different touch points on the entire customer journey, both at an aggregate level for the whole brand, let's say, and our executives, all of our customer service complaints, all of our product reviews, all of our E-Trade or Amazon partner data, and then we look at our campaigns, all the campaigns that are happening. So I have a really big visualization when I'm in the office. When I'm out of the office, I don't have 25 screens on my computer, but I do get updates on a number of pressing issues. But I think the coolest thing about it is it gives us this global view that we can pivot. And when world events happen, like the tragedy in Brussels, we stop everything, all tweets, all campaigns, really take decisive action globally to hold back so we don't fill up people's inboxes and streams with noise in, I think, an inconsiderate moment. And we've replicated that in a lot of our markets. And a visualization, I think, of data and results really, I think, brings it to life for executives. And then we can cut into any of our businesses in much more detail. And lots of the media data we have populated there as well. So it makes it very visual.
And how about you, Caroline? What's going on right now in IBM land that you're keeping track of while you're here in Spain?
So it's interesting when you kind of think about when you're here, you're away, you're at a conference, and you get up. We have a command center too. I think they are incredibly powerful visualization tools, if you like, that really help people see what's happening and react to it really fast. Unfortunately for me, mine is in Armonk in New York State. And never mind if I was at home in London or here in Seville, I actually don't get to look at it straight away, but I do get lots of feeds from it. But actually the first thing I do in the morning is I listen to a radio. Anybody else here from the UK? Great. So like most of you, I imagine, my day starts with the Today programme on Radio 4. So in the UK, there is a speech radio news programme every morning. Starts at 6:30 a.m. And everybody in business pretty much, more so than even read the Financial Times or, if you're in the US, the Wall Street Journal or whatever. That's how I start, because it gives you the business context and the political context. It's a serious news show. And I... that's where my day always starts. So even here, I get it, through live stream it through my phone, which is marvelous. I think the things that I'm really staring at beyond that, more and more, as I mentioned before, more and more of our engagement with our clients and our prospective clients is through digital media. And so, we've put a lot of energy and effort into being able to really automate the digital funnel and really understand where we're interacting and what's actually happening there. So I guess that's probably the one sort of real-time or near to real-time visualization that I stare at throughout every day.
What data points would be showing up in that digital funnel?
So the view that I take is kind of a simplistic one. Obviously, there are individuals in the team who are deep into day in, day out, hour by hour, the nitty-gritty details. I'm looking at the whole buying journey, starting with discover, through learn, through try, through buy, and through to advocacy. So that's one very consistent so simplistic, but looking at all of the touches, all of the data points, all of the conversion rates, how are they changing? Because it gives me a general sense of the health of that piece of the business, which is probably the piece that's for a big old, business-to-business company who has been famous for many years for its suited and booted salespeople. This is a radical transformation. So I think that's probably the one I look at. And then from I guess the other one, which is interesting, is so we do a lot of work around a social command center. So really getting all of the insights you're getting from social media. But what I personally find quite useful is just, I use TweetDeck and I do a scan of what's being said. So, I come from a tech company, but I tell you, sometimes it really is good to apply a human mind with a particular context to what's actually flowing through, and I find it quite useful. I sort of almost take a temperature. It's not scientific. But I take a temperature of what's happening out there, and I find that very helpful as well.
And you'd be looking at the temperature of the IBM brand as a whole, or?
The IBM brand as a whole, particular issues that are very important to us, what my competitors are up to, what key clients are up to. It's just a quick scan. I probably look at it 4 times a day. So I get from our teams, all this wonderful insight from the social dashboards. We use technology to do sentiment analysis on all the social content as well. But I find sometimes you just got to read. Sometimes you just got to listen. And I think sometimes this may sound crazy at a conference like this, but sometimes there are nuggets in the macro level insight that you are going to miss when you have distilled the data too far.
Yeah, and we were talking about that earlier. Making sure not to miss the forest for the trees, right?
Absolutely.
So Blake, I know there's a metric that you rely on a lot that I'd love for you to maybe explain a little bit. Digital return on investment.
Yeah, about a year ago, we embarked upon a journey looking at all of our media spend and all of our campaigns, and we felt that driving a behavioral change of, with digital data, you can analyze on a daily, hourly basis if you wanted to. But I had a world of marketeers that were making investments and not looking at things until after the campaign. Maybe they were looking weekly. So what we did is a number of pilots globally where my agency partners charge me back for my own data, but anyways, that's a side point. But we pulled the data back in-house, and we started to analyze on a daily basis, and in some cases hourly, all of our media spend, and started to optimize. And it wasn't really about the media optimization. You can do that, but it was, and we got really incredible results. I'm talking 20 to 40% media efficiency. And aside from the media efficiency, which we plowed that money back into extending the campaign, if you think about behavioral change in an organization that's typically campaigns are very spiky, and you really want to have more of an always-on approach. It was really about returning that media efficiency into extending the campaigns and keeping them more always on and getting more results. But the campaigns really resulted in higher sales, and that's really ultimately what the business is after. But really what went along with this is we did pilots in the US and Germany. There was also a cultural belief inside of Philips that, and probably a lot of large organizations, of not invented here syndrome. So if the asset wasn't invented in that country, it wouldn't work. Well, we proved actually assets from other markets were the best practice because we could prove it via A/B testing and optimization and make the pivot. We got better results.
Can you give an example of like one thing that was developed somewhere that now is being used?
Literally the display
everywhere?
ads that we were using in one market, another market was
Just the
convinced.
ad creative?
The ad creative, the ad unit itself, worked in one market, and the other market did not believe it would hunt, and it had actually the same effect.
Yeah.
And we increased the results. So what we've done with this, and really, again, we're investing in some ad serving technology so we can scale this, because honestly, I would need to cover 80% of our media spend, I'd have to do about 70 of these programs, and you can't scale that manually. So we're going to scale it with technology, of course, but this really radically changes our marketeers' behavior. So part of it, we're teaching people how to optimize, but we're also teaching people that they actually have to be in their investment on a daily basis. That's behavior change. That isn't about buying media. That's really about changing the way people do their campaigns and look at things. And that's the harder part that I think is the change from data and marketing. And I know, Caroline, you've done a similar analytics program, so I'd be curious to hear how you've done that as well.
Sure.
Please.
So yeah, very similar. And that point on behavior change is so important. I'm sure many of you here, service many of your clients in helping them with the underlying data, with the analytics, with the insight. But without the behavior change, it'll be valueless, it'll be pointless. And so I guess there's a couple of things that we've done. But the first one really was around behavior. And really to teach everybody. So last year, we undertook a training program for everybody in marketing. For us in Europe, that meant we put 1,300 people through 3 days of experiential learning, and then sent them out to go and actually do something with it. And we didn't do 1,300 people in one group. We broke it down, of course, but 1,300 people over a period of time. It's been so interesting. So we have a fantastic guy. His name is Jeff. I won't tell you his surname because you'll all try and steal him. But we have this fantastic guy called Jeff, who is an absolute guru on all things digital and analytical marketing-wise and data analytics. But he is one of those human beings who is blessed with the amazing capability to teach. And he is quite extraordinary. So we now have literally a buzz phrase in IBM, which is, what would Jeff do? When you're coming up with any question, you look at campaigns, you're doing your A/B testing, you're doing multivariant testing, literally so you can put all the things in place that enable you to do that, and that give you access to near real-time analytics in your campaigns. But actually to get people into the mode where they think about it every single day, and these are, often relatively junior marketers, where they're thinking about it every day, or it's absolutely part of their, it becomes part of their DNA almost. It just becomes a totally instinctive, right, we do this and we're going to test that on this. Okay, well, that's going well, but actually that other campaign, slightly better scores there, so maybe, I wonder what we could change. So let's try these two things. Getting people to think both about the content, the content of the message or the value proposition, but getting them to think about how they're delivering it. And to your point, I think, Blake, getting them engaged to think about, okay, we've learned this brilliant thing. How do we let everybody else know that this has really worked for us? Other people should go test this. How do we learn from other people? How do we take those best practices? And getting people out of that mindset that we're the French team and we know everything there is to know. We know how to do this in France. Please, nobody else tell us what to do. Getting to that place behaviorally of pure collaboration. So there isn't a Caroline Taylor telling them they've got to do it like that, but there is a Caroline Taylor making sure that the infrastructure and the methodologies are in place so that they can collaborate and learn constantly from each other as to who's got an amazing result with what. We have an insane number. I think currently the count is 97 campaigns in market at any one time, around the world. But if you educate and empower your people to really, and then you put in place an agile infrastructure that creates the insight, manages the data, then I think you start to have, and you really do start to see some amazing uptick. Our observation is we are seeing massive change, massive improvements in the ROI, but actually also just of people who once upon a time weren't really able to connect what they did day by day to that result. Mm-hmm. And suddenly they can, because they were the ones who were smart enough to go, well, let's try these two variants. Oh, look, 6 hours later, this one is having a much bigger impact. Okay, switch off A, let's just do B. That empowerment and trust actually makes them much more motivated people.
Can you, Blake, you can answer this too. But
I just had two things to build on before we go to another question. I think that's really key, and I think if anybody's from technology companies or agencies, and we're two big brands, I think the challenge that we have is, creating consistency globally and embedding in DNA of our people consistent way of working. That's the biggest part of digital transformation, I think, that's happening, or marketing and data transformation that's happening, at least inside of big organizations, and where we need partners to help us carry that. I think one other thing that I think is really important is when I arrived at Philips, everyone had the digital best practice. Everyone. There was like 400 digital best practices. But interestingly enough, everybody had defined their own KPIs of success. So one thing that we've done over the past 24 months is we've actually built and harmonized all of our KPIs and dashboards for all markets and for all campaigns. And so you can actually compare apples and apples. Before, it wasn't even fruit. There was, vegetables in there and who knows what else in the comparisons. So now we have really standard dashboards on high-level metrics that go very deep, actually, on various levels if you need to get to that level of detail. But we've actually rolled that into all of the management review process, all the way to the top of the organization with our CEO. These dashboards, this snapshot on search performance, amount of people in the CRM database, it's all aligned, web traffic, and so everything can be aligned, and we can really look and say, hey, you know what? Brazil actually is doing something. I don't know what they're doing, but their performance is better than Poland, for instance. Before, we could never make those comparisons and guide the business to find the best practice and really pull it up and elevate it. There was just lots of best practices running around, making a lot of noise. And so I think, that's also a really big thing for us is around standardization and harmonization, so you can get to the best practice sharing everywhere. I think it's really, really critical.
Is there for both of you, like a key piece of data or information that you now have provided access to for everybody in your marketing team across the globe? Does everybody have access to one thing that maybe they didn't before that has made a change?
I mean, for us, it's the full picture of that whole funnel or customer decision journey inside of a dashboard, so they can really see across all touch points, really what's happening. And then specifically, if there's campaigns, pull that out and they can stack them business next to business to see, how shaver performance is versus baby bottle performance versus lighting performance. So they can really compare, how things are across different combinations in our markets. That
So it's how
wasn't
the
there before.
information's just presented, that it's more cohesive,
Well, and the aligned KPIs and how we define it.
and standardization of KPIs.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question because actually I don't believe it's helpful for everybody in the marketing function to have access to all the data. You can get lost in it, and not even all the insight that you derive from the data. So I would say we have, a consistent dashboard, but, the macro level, there's people like me stare at that. And then I think the really critical thing is to make sure each individual has access to the insight and data that they need to do their job. Actually making that happen is not as straightforward or as easy as it might sound. But that's really the criticality. I think otherwise here's one of the problems, and maybe this is when you're in a tech company, but we love data. We love it. And you can distract people to be spending far too much time, wallowing around in it, going, well, isn't that interesting? Well, yes, it is, but actually it's not helping you do your job, so never mind, ignore that, let's move on. So I think the important thing is having a very effective and agile infrastructure that enables each individual to get access to exactly the data that they need in order to be more successful at doing their job. And I think, and for a lot of people, that is about real time. I think there's a sort of another piece of it, which is the ability to draw insight from the data. So, analyzing a lot of the data sets that we generate as a business, that's really straightforward. That's table stakes. Being able to glean insight from the data that is harder to access, so the unstructured data that's out there, and be able to gain insight, predictive insight from that starts to be a real game changer. And again, so that's something that we put a lot of time and energy into. But again, not everybody needs to understand the implications of ABC. So I think it is about making sure that the right people have the right insight at the right time to do their jobs, and that it does all join together. And that comes back to this point about consistency, standards, and having a common methodology. So the methodology we deployed last year is very clear. It has 26 steps. The thing I love is that my team now literally have conversations about step number 3 and step number 6. They've really, really taken it on board. And some of our very senior people said, well, I don't understand. This is far too complicated. 26 steps. What are you thinking? Well, I'm sorry. Our lives are inherently complex. To try and simplify it doesn't help. To pretend there's only 6 steps when there really are 26 it is mad. But once you lay it all out and everybody has absolute clarity on their role and how their role links into the next person's role, if you're running 97 campaigns around the world, it really, really helps. So having the data, having the insight, knowing exactly who does what either side of what you do is the key.
I think maybe, can we take a question from the audience? Anybody have a question? I don't know if there's a mic out there. Anybody want to ask a question? No? Okay. All right, so...
Yeah, I think finding people that are both qualitative and quantitative inside of one mindset, I think is also a really challenge. Finding these marketeers or analysts that actually have both left and right brain, so to speak, inside one person is challenging, and those people need to be protected and cherished. I think inside of organizations, your Jeffs, et cetera. This is also a really big challenge. I think that all of us face in this space is that digital talent is scarce. I think people who really get it are scarce, and keeping them motivated inside of organizations is also very, very challenging inside of bigger, complex I'll call it old line companies. Different things motivate these people, and we do different things to try to rotate people between our markets, our business groups, different projects, keep it interesting, and really to develop that capability to be left and right brain and be qualitative and quantitative, I think is something you really have to do if you want to shift that mindset to the data-driven marketing type.
Yeah. Are there, I mean, in this current world of the data and what you guys are usually looking at, are there qualitative data points or just, is research that you still find really important or that are good complements to all those numbers coming in?
Absolutely. So real time is great, but it has limited application. We do loads and loads of research. A lot of our dashboards are brand. So we do a lot of work around using data to evaluate our brand in, I would say, near real time. And so, a lot of the work we do there is also research-based as well as, just data coming in through all the normal mechanisms. The thing that's really exciting for these days, and I think, an area that Blake, your organization's involved in as well, is this whole concept of cognitive computing or augmented intelligence. And some of the exciting things we're starting to see there around how that actually does start to give you qualitative insight into very large, unstructured data sets. Again, that gives you a new set of insights on which you can act, but also a set of insights that you can embed into content that you then use to market to your prospective audience, which is fabulous.
And somehow Watson, the name Watson hasn't come up yet, but that's what you're referring to.
Exactly. So if you're familiar with IBM at all, then IBM Watson is really the first iteration of cognitive computing. So as I say, augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence. We think augmented is a much more accurate description of it because actually it doesn't replace, it does augment. We're having, going back to 2011 when we had Watson win the Jeopardy game show in the US, which was an extraordinary thing. And I hear others are playing with the idea of having, artificial intelligence mechanisms to play games, but we feel that's a bit passé now, having done that all those years back. But just the way that you can apply it, and you can play with this. So if you want to go play with a data set, have a look at Watson Personality Insights. You just Google it, you'll find it. And it's a really fun thing. It has two forms. One form is you can give it permission to mine your Twitter account, and it will give you a personality analysis of you based on what's on Twitter. And the other thing you can do is you can just copy and paste a piece of text that you've personally written. So it could be your bio or, or a letter to your mom or whatever. And again, it will analyze it and give you, and I cannot tell you, these personality analyses that get delivered are unbelievably accurate. So imagine you do that for yourself. Imagine you do that for your customer.
Yeah.
You can start to know stuff about them they haven't even noticed themselves.
Well, I'm going to go try it right now. We're going to have to call it quits here, but Watson Personality Test. Okay, Watson Personality Insights. All right, awesome.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.